Greetings and bienvenue, Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Hey/X/community. Any creepy stories you want to share about your neighborhood? I want to share about my father's encounter way back in his younger days. When he was around 21 years old, he used to spend time at his aunt's house. He would hang around in the balcony while sketching. Odd stuff began to emerge when in the middle of the night, watching TV in his bedroom. He heard a horse galloping, running around in the neighborhood. He didn't actually mind it at first. He thought it was only a carriage. But later then, he heard it again. He opened his window, then stepped into the balcony and looked around. There wasn't any carriage or anything, but he heard an unusual sound coming from the trees. In the next morning, my father told the incident to his aunt. They have no clue what it was. So eventually my father thinks it's just a mere illusion and just forgot about it throughout the years. Years passed, and on my 8th birthday, my father's cousin, who was a seaman, came. He told my father that he went to see their aunt too in the province a couple of months ago. As the story progressed, my father was shocked about what his cousin told him. He had an experience similar to my father. My uncle's story was that while he's trying to relax and having tea on the balcony around 11 p.m., he heard a horse running around the neighborhood. He quickly stretched his neck and looked around. He then was shocked at what he saw. He saw a very tall guy, like around 12 feet, with hair reaching below the neck, though he just saw the back of it. He wasn't exactly sure, so then he stand up to get a closer look. Just find out that the naked guy's torso was a body of horse. He told my father that he wasn't sure how to react. He went all pale and thought he was curious about the creature. He was frightened of what he saw. He didn't actually see the face of the half-man, half-horse, although after 10 seconds of staring at it, he passed out of fright. My uncle woke up at the nearby hospital. He had a hard time breathing, so he then passed out that night. He described to my father that it was a disturbing experience, and he can't believe what he just saw. Although my uncle doesn't believe in mythical creatures, he never really can't deny what he saw that night. Although half-human, half-horse is a famous mythical creature here, though the difference is that old folks believed in a humanoid-looking creature, with the head and feet of a horse. A Sagittarius-looking creature is not a famous mythical creature around here, but I believe some Western and European countries have mythical creatures involving a half-human, half-horse as seen in many film portrayals. So what do you think? Do you have any encounters that you would like to share?
Just curious, OP, where was the general area where this occurred? The States, country, or in the city, etc.? Fascinating story.
First of all, I'm from the Philippines, and you probably know that a lot of our mythical creatures revolve around mountains and guardians of forests. The first incident that happened to my father was around the 70s or early 80s, and then my uncle's sightings was 2004. So it's really interesting that my father thought it was just a mere delusion. This happened in the local province in Iloilo City.
I have no reason to doubt the veracity of these stories. But what to make of it? So centaurs are real? They obviously can't be found anywhere. So are they more like spiritual or extra-dimensional beings? And if so, are there more where they came from? God I love, X.
Actually, at first, I doubted their stories, and so I tried to recall it. And maybe there's similar events that the X can share, like the earlier comment about her grandma who saw a half-dog, half-human. Also, there was a mythical creature like a centaur, which around here is called Tikbalang, although it's a humanoid creature with the head of a horse.
My grandmother told me that in the 1950s, she was walking home at night from her friend's house and saw a man in a suit in the middle of the road. She said he was on his hands and knees and walked closer to him to see if he needed help. When she got closer, the man turned around and had the face of a dog. She said that she quickly backed up and started running, but the man chased her by crawling on all fours until she made her way back to her friend's house and locked the door, having to stay the night until morning. Whenever I try to ask her more about it, she just says a lot of strange things started happening in the 50s.
Oh, that's so weird. There's this whole shape-shifting creature panic in the 50s and 60s, and to think that the sighting can happen in the West and even in Southeast Asian countries.
My Opa, back in his hometown in Poland sometime before World War II, had a story like that. As he was walking home on a foggy night, he saw an enormous black dog walking around. When he turned around to look at it again, there was no dog, but instead a short man of the same height instead.
All right, I've got a pretty good neighborhood story, suburb in southern Ohio. My friend and I got bored at 3 in the morning. The house next to him is foreclosed and empty. Sneak in through the basement porch door. Shit everywhere, and by shit I mean junk. Creepy-ass masks hanging on the wall that look like Phantom of the Opera from hell. Move across the basement and immediately hit with a terrible smell. Ignore the smell because look at those old-ass pictures. Huge pile of old fading pictures of some family, and also an old Kodak camera. Try the camera in a random direction. It still works. The flash goes off. Realize that the smell was because feces was everywhere, and I mean real feces this time. Assume some homeless man squatted there or the evicted family decided to trash the place. Suddenly notice a line of light that wasn't there before. The door to upstairs was open with just a crack and a dim light was coming from the room above. Friend is talking about some random stuff about poor people ruining houses before they get evicted. I stare into the upper room trying to see what's in there, even though there shouldn't be a light and the door should be shut, and what the hell. Shape of a head blocks some of the light from the upper room, and my friend shuts up because he sees it too. Notice a hand coming around the door, really long and skinny fingers. That's no homeless man.jpg. Grab a flashlight from a friend as we back toward the door. Shine it up the stairs. See the same kind of mask hanging on the wall when we first walked into the basement, on the thing's face. Nope. Both run for the door and I turn to shut it and see that the mask on the wall is gone. It's the same mask. It was in the room with us, 4 or 5 feet away. Run back to my friend's house, Mach 10, sonictheme.mp4. Sit on his couch in the basement, watch Netflix, and never speak of it again.
A similar thing happened to me and a friend. It just wasn't as spoopy. Still, I lost my mind though. Walk the railway tracks home all the time. There's only 3 tracks and one isn't in use anymore, so we walk that one. Go further than we normally do. Around the tracks are just overgrowth and trees, not a forest or wood, just odd trees. For miles, one side has a massive factory on it from the 20s that's still in use, and on the other side we see this tiny little old workshop that looks the same age as the factory, but it had a kind of extension on the back, made of aluminum sheets or something nailed together. Start looking around. There's a little car park thing that hasn't been used in years because you can't drive into it, and rats are everywhere. Try to get into the workshop door, but it's welded shut. Really curious about what's inside, so we check out the metal sheets. A couple of the nails are missing from the bottom, so we pull the sheet more or less off and the nails holding it on. Dark inside, and can't really make anything out, even though it's only about 15 feet long and maybe 7 feet wide. Eyes adjust, and it's just empty paint tins and trash on the floor. Door almost half open at the far end with a coat hanging on the outside. Can make out like a workbench, and shelves with little tins on it. Definitely lighter behind the door, like the sunlight is coming through a window or something. Hear rats knocking things over. Tell my friend to have a look at what's behind the door. Starts approaching it and some guy walks past where it's open and blocks almost all the light. Hightail the hell out of there. It's been pulled down, but it was just so odd. Chances are he was homeless because there's a lot of them around there. I just don't understand how he got in and why he just seemed to ignore us like we weren't there. It was impossible not to know we were there with the noise we made.
Anglospherian detected.
Better believe it, senpai. I don't live all too far from Solway, Firth, and I've always wanted to check the place out after the spaceman thing, but I've never been. There's a much more local one though, but it's alien-related and I'm not sure on how well it fits into the thread. The guy has been in the paper about it before too, but I didn't hear about it until not too long ago. I can't remember it word for word sometime during or after World War II. Some guy claims when he was a kid, he saw an alien in his backyard. Policeman or someone kills it with a spade. Put it in a bag or pillowcase or something and bury it under some church steps. Big old heavy sandstone type steps. Never changed his story. got pissed off when it was reported he had seen little green men, because he never once said they were green. Presume the church has been pulled down by now. It hasn't. It's just been sold last year for renovation purposes. The newspaper articles aren't too hard to find, but no one I've spoken to from the area had even heard the story. I just want them to lift the steps and see how true his claim is, to be honest. That was about 10 minutes away from me, and about 5 minutes in the other direction. Someone in the 70s claimed they were visited by aliens more than once. I can't remember if they claimed an abduction or not. I just found it a bit crazy how I was looking for local, or even localish, UFO-related stuff, and found 2 practically on my doorstep.
My sister and I had a run-in with an alleged Goatman, or at least we thought that's what it was. We were hanging out the day before Thanksgiving of 2014 when she got the idea to look for abandoned homes, barns, and other buildings on the way up to Hudson. We find an abandoned barn on some back roads, perhaps 5 miles away from the interstate. Sis is starting to chicken out at the last minute, but I had to be the asshole who was all gung-ho about it. So we approach the barn that has these withered-to-shit wooden double doors. There weren't any chains or locks on it, so it seemed inviting enough. Forgot to mention there's plenty of sunlight, because it's around 3 in the afternoon. First thing we see inside is plenty of meat hooks hanging from wooden rafters, with piles of hay strewn about the floor. Sister is trying to call me back. She just wasn't having it. I'm starting to get a really bad feeling being in there too. Suddenly we both fall silent when we hear this odd groaning noise from the upper level of the barn. I make my way back towards the door without taking my eyes off the upper level. Looking closer, I could see a large fur-covered thing sort of hunched over and heaving. That was enough for my sister and I to bolt back into the car and speed home. Wasn't in a neighborhood, but yeah. But it still scared the pants off me.
I'll share one, but it's going to be Greentext because I'm on my break. Montana, near Canada, if location matters. Small neighborhood. Road ends 3 houses down from mine. Lots of trees, mostly pine, and lots of bushes. The road ends because of a river and heavily wooded area. Total of 8 houses on this road, 4 on each side, all with some kind of greenery cover. Very spoopy at night. My face when I work the night shift. Since I moved in, the houses around me have slowly emptied. 8 houses, only 5 are occupied. No streetlights. Always dead quiet at night. I always feel like I'm being watched at night when I'm walking to my car. It's almost a feeling like I'm prey and a predator is eyeballing me. Chalk it up to paranoia, sack up. One night, full or almost full moon, very clear. Cold enough to see breath, like 24 degrees. Go out and start the car, it's 10:30 p.m. I'm too old for this .jpg. Going back to the house, there's that feeling of being watched. Get inside, shower, suit up, microwaving a hot pocket. Hear what I thought was my outside door open. Glance up, no one opens the secondary door, must be hearing things. Eating hot pocket, watching videos on YouTube before I leave. Locking up the house, still having the feeling of being watched. I hear footsteps in gravel across the street from my house. Big freaking pine tree. Blocks all light from the moon in its immediate area. Not seeing anyone or anything over there to make a noise, I say, "Hello?" like a dumbass. No response, obviously. Walking to my car when I notice breath clouds coming from under a pine tree. I don't see anything, but I sense something big. Bigger than me, at least. I'm 6'6" and 280 pounds, just staring in that direction at the hood of my car. As if it were in a crouched position, sense it standing up or straighten out or whatever. Sound of branches creaking as this happens. Breath clouds now 2 to 3 feet higher than they were, coming through the actual needles now, instead of the empty space underneath. Still standing there like a deer in headlights. Get the sense it takes a step forward. Gravel sound again. Snap out of it, run around the front of the car, slam the door, and peel out of work. Look in the rear view and catch a glimpse of a very pale and kinda hairy limb disappearing back underneath the tree. Nope the entire way to work. Nope during work. Nope back home. Nope parking car. Noped over to the tree. Noped when I found a big pile of fresh excrement under the tree. I park my car with the driver's side door facing my gate now. Neighbors think I'm nuts. I still get that feeling at night. Haven't had an encounter since. It's just kind of become a fixture of my nightly routine now, but I still have no idea what I saw. I can provide pics of the tree if you guys want. I'll even sack up and do it now, at 11:11 p.m. if you want. I just want people to know how and why I died. Alright, I took pics, but I only had a cheap color changing LED for a light source. I got as close as I could to that tree, then zoomed in a little. If the thread is still up in the daylight hours, I'll post some daytime pics. Pics starting in the next post. You can't really tell. Sorry, but that's my car. Parked sideways, as I said. That's the end of the street. Lights have been put up at the end since my encounter. Some dude didn't know where he was driving and drove right into the trees. Alright, back to shitty LED. That's where I saw the breath and that bunch of branches and right underneath. I was shitting my pants just taking these pics. Looking through a phone screen made it way spookier than I thought it would. And this is just a shot of the empty space underneath the tree. Needless to say, I was as far away as I could be while maintaining some amount of light. Zoom is at 1.7 times here, I think.
Just enhance the pic. What is that, man?
The black part with white above it? That's one of the unoccupied houses I mentioned. The tree is right in front of that corner of it. The black spot right above where you circled is a window, if you were wondering.
Be nighttime, walking the dog through the streets. I live in a nice little town and know all the streets, etc. Have a specific way I walk. Anyway, coming up to about halfway, my dog starts barking like crazy. Bend down and start patting her, trying to figure what's gotten into her. Then she starts whimpering with her tail between her legs. I'm starting to freak out a little because this isn't normal. Then I see it in the distance. Huge black, nearly as tall as me, just casually walking along the border of the forest. First thing my brain scrambles together is a giant wolf and run. And I'm gone, sprinting so fast home, takes a shortcut. It starts to pour down with rain. I'm running faster than my dog. Get home and slam my door shut. I have no clue what I saw that night. We don't have wolves in my country, and I know for a fact it was no dog. It looked like a huge wolf, and I felt a huge sense of dread.
I'm standing in line at the supermarket, waiting for my package. It's my turn, and the man standing next to me is watching me. I swiftly ignore him, take my package, and run into the forest home. I'm sitting in the cafe, and a group of Italian men walk in and sit a few seats away from me. They all are wearing sunglasses, and the man in the brown coat is watching me. I drink my coffee, take my bag, and leave. I'm waiting for the bus, looking across the street, letting my mind wander while music drifts into my ears. A girl takes a selfie next to me and distracts me from the man with the blue shirt watching me. I scan my ticket on the bus and hop off at the library. I ask the librarian if they have a book available, and they tell me it'll be available soon. I turn around, and the man leaning on the wall talking on the phone is watching me. I walk out and run back to the bus stop. I'm walking home after the bus dropped me off near my house, and I'm thinking about the people who were watching me today. I cross the street into the neighborhood I live in, and there's someone watching me from inside their house. I look back, they wink at me, and I start running down the street. I unlock the front door, crawl on the floor to my room to avoid the windows, and lock the door. I walk to close the blinds, and there is nothing in my backyard. Still, there's someone watching me, and I know it. I lie in bed and stare into the ceiling. There is nothing, and yet I feel watched. The audience applauds, and I do not bow. My performance today was subpar. The curtain slips once more. Maybe tomorrow I should wear a different jacket.
A/X/. My little cousin told me about this crazy thing that happened to him. I'm not sure if he is just dreaming this and confusing it with reality, or if this is indeed related to the paranormal. He lives on a cul-de-sac loop road with this basketball hoop. Anyway, he says everyone in his neighborhood, including his parents, T-poses from exactly midnight to 4 a.m. At first, I didn't believe him, but he kept going on and on about it and seemed almost freaked out. He isn't known to lie, and my family has no case of mental illness aside from ADD and a little dyslexia. His parents talked to him and his sister about it when they were younger and answered all the questions they had. They told him that it happens exactly at midnight, 00 hours, and they do it to recharge. At that time, they drop everything they are holding, lose consciousness, and immediately move their body into T-pose. This is followed by them simultaneously being lifted and pushed as they glide towards where they normally sleep at night. They need to be careful that they are in bed before that time arises, and take care not to hold any breakable objects too late in the evening. My cousin says everyone in his neighborhood also does this at the same time as well, and it's so normal and mundane they talk about it as much as someone talks about standing in line or driving to work. His parents told him the people who have jobs at night, like firefighters and the people that work at the power plant, live in different neighborhoods where they recharge at a different time. By the time he told me all this, I asked him if he really believes this, and he gave me this look like I was crazy. Then he went into how he woke up to the sound of glass breaking one night and saw his father glide past his bedroom door, which his parents make him keep open at night in case there is something wrong with their recharging cycle. He said his father was in perfect T-pose, albeit arms sort of midway up, and he was gliding down the hallway in the direction of his parents' bedroom. Then he said something to the effect of that wasn't why he was talking about this outside of the home, changed his tone and told me he was worried about his mother. He said one night he woke up for no particular reason and saw his mother standing over him. She was wearing her clothes for bed but was standing perfectly upright, arms jutting outwards and head straight forward like a pick related. Her eyes were completely open, and she did not blink the entire time. He didn't know what to do, so he just looked at her for a bit in startled curiosity. When he said her name, she just moved backwards, dropped arms down to a sort of halfway stance, and glided through the door out of his room and down the hall. He then proceeded to ask me if he ever saw anyone do that before, and I had a difficult time composing myself enough to tell him no. I don't know, /X/. He doesn't play a ton of video games, but I think he is just dreaming this and confusing it with reality. I'm going to ask his parents if they have ever seen the T-pose and see what their reaction is. It's not that I believe him, but I want to double check if anyone else has heard about this. I worry about his thinking.
It was 1998. My family had been staying in a house with a vast front yard for around 3 years then. Next to that big yard is a cemetery, a typical Javanese cemetery shaded in frangipani trees, which gives an eerie feeling even during the day. We never had any encounter before. Grandma, actually, she was my youngest sister's nanny, but we consider her as family and called her Mba, it's grandma in Javanese, told us that ghosts or unseen creatures are scared of young kids. My 3 younger siblings were around 6 to 10 years old back then. It was said that young kids could see them, and it's their bad luck to be seen by kids. Then, a distant neighbor's daughter got murdered by her husband after an argument. She requested divorce, but he rejected and went furious when he saw her packing her clothes to go home to her parents. The couple were living in a city called Surabaya back then. It was a horrifying murder as the wife's white shirt turned red because of the blood. Her parents took her home to be buried in her hometown, and the cemetery is right near my old house. The haunting started just 3 days after the funeral. People claimed to see a woman in a red dress standing right outside the alley, which led to the cemetery with a lot of luggage. She is often seen trying to stop ojek, motorbike transport, after midnight. If the ojek stopped for her, they would have ended up in the middle of the cemetery. I am a morning person. I woke up really early in the morning because I am the oldest daughter. I often saw ojek riders come out from the cemetery alley early in the morning. My dad would say, "She's at it again." Soon the rumor about the lady in red dress spread all over the village. I didn't really believe it back then. I thought it was just a rumor spread by some irresponsible people, because ever since the rumor started, the neighborhood night watch stopped and burglaries started happening. But it turned out it was the burglaries that took advantage of the ghost. It was my last year of junior high school, and we went on a trip to the city of Yogya. I have 3 classmates who live nearby my house, so we decided to go home together. It was 2 a.m. in the morning, and my teacher decided to send all 4 of us home in his car. When we passed that alley leading to the cemetery, all 5 of us, including my teacher, saw that lady in red dress standing under the streetlight with the big suitcases next to her. She stretched her hand as if stopping my teacher's car. All four of us knew who that lady was, and when our teacher was about to stop for her, we immediately shouted at him, "No!" My teacher was pretty taken aback, wondering why we stopped him from stopping for that lady. I nudged my friend to tell the teacher later about that lady in red dress, because I had to get off first. And I thought my friend did tell my teacher about that lady in red dress. To my shock, the very next morning there was this uproar in my village about a car in the middle of a cemetery. And the car was my teacher's. It was still a mystery how the car got there. The alley itself was very narrow, and my teacher's car was an 8-seater. I asked my friend whether she told the teacher or not, and she swore she did. I guessed my teacher didn't believe us, or he might be curious about that lady in red dress. Because after that, he tried as much as he could to avoid us. I graduated from junior high school a month later. The lady in red dress still appeared sometimes, and had an encounter with my father as well once or twice. My father told us that as long as she didn't disturb us, let her be. Because my house used to be pretty close to the cemetery where she was buried, I decided to keep the story to myself. We sort of treated her like a neighbor that we didn't want to associate with. We knew she was there, but we preferred not to disturb her. 2 months ago, my parents moved out from that house after my mother retired.
Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
In Northern Virginia, there is a local legend about the Bunny Man. As I was told, sometime in the early 20th century in Clifton, there was an insane asylum. One, probably dark and stormy night, the guards were transporting some patients from the Clifton Asylum to the Lorton Prison. Just as they were a few miles out, something happened. Probably a crash, because roads in Clifton are windy and dark, and the carriage flipped over and broke open. All the patients were accounted for except one. They searched and searched the dark woods surrounding the road but never found him. A few weeks passed and people began reporting missing pets. The police connected the two events and investigated the neighborhoods reporting the disappearances. Then one night they found beneath this bridge, Pick-related, forever dubbed the Bunny Man Bridge. Here's where the stories always differ, so I'll tell both versions. Beneath the bridge, they found the rotting bodies of pets and rabbits caught in the local woods. The corpses were covered in festering, bleeding wounds the man had inflicted upon them, and all the rabbits' heads were chewed off, leaving a broken spine poking from the gorged, hairy neck. The man was never found. Beneath the bridge, they found the man, dressed in nothing but a pink bunny costume he somehow obtained. He hung from the ceiling of the bridge by the neck on a fraying, thick rope, and surrounding his body were the bodies of countless skeletons of the missing pets and rabbits he'd snared in the woods. They say that maniac symbols were scrawled on the wall of the bridge in the blood of his many furry victims. Here's what actually happened to spark the legend. The first real sighting of the Bunny Man occurred October 19, 1970, in Fairfax. A couple was driving their car on the way back from a romantic date. They decided to park on the side of the road and leave the engine idling. As they sat there, a shadowy figure knocked on their window. The man rolled it down and saw a tall figure wearing all white, and the man later said atop his head a mask with 2 tall bunny ears. The Bunny Man screamed the man down, shouting that he was on private property. For reasons I don't really understand, the man threw a hatchet into the man's car, which landed on the back seat. Needless to say, the couple drove away in terror. The second real sighting of the Bunny Man occurred October 29, 1970, just 10 days after the first one. Presumably, the same man dressed in a gray, black and white bunny costume was standing on the porch of a building in the middle of construction. The foreman showed up just as the sun was setting to the site of the Bunny Man, holding a long-handled axe and cutting through a porch post. He was reported as saying, "All you people trespass around here. If you don't get out of here, I'm going to bust you on the head." Several newspapers reported on the incident, resulting in more than 50 people reporting Bunny Man sightings. One such report stated the Bunny Man stole his cat and devoured it. The real version doesn't have the same charm as the original to me, but to each their own, I suppose. I want to believe that a crazy man eats rabbits under a bridge.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.
Remember to check the Odyssey and Rumble pages for separate archives of previous broadcasts.